Alright, welcome back to the shop, everybody. So for today's shenanigans, so number one, there's a couple of things happening here. It's cold, 12.6 degrees in the shop. So that means that this had to happen, because I can't work in a cold shop. And secondly, got myself a new Chinesium branded bandsaw. It's only small, it's only, I think that's 200mm max, I think they said. But that's what we'll be playing with today. I've tested it already, it seems to work alright. I also had to rip out the plug and put a new Australian plug on it because it came with a European plug. Pretty sure I ordered it with an Australian plug, but never mind, just as well I've got lots of spare cords. So for today's shenanigans, a piece of wood that's going to go through the saw. So I bought this little template off Etsy from Rogue Green Co. They do little wooden tools used for pushing oven trays in and out here. Apparently these two little notches here are good for mason jars. I don't have any mason jars, but that's okay, I'll just follow the template anyway. And then there's varying hole sizes here for different herbs. So rosemary and parsley and all that sort of stuff. So just going to make one of those. So I've just got to find somewhere to glue it down from and then cut it out. So there's a few splits along the piece of wood here. So I've just got to find like a decent spot, which I think is probably in the middle around here. The other problem I've got to be careful of, well, not careful of, but just mindful of, it does have a bit of a bow in it. But never mind, it'll be, I think I can probably then just sand it down a little bit flatter, or if it's got a slight bow in it from, so as long as I put it sort of that way, so the straight piece here is actually going straight with the grain of the wood, where it's least bent, that should be okay. So what I might do is I'll cut this out and then glue it down to the piece of wood on a decent bit, and then we'll get to bandsawing it out. So template is all cut out. So I've cut it as close as I can around here when I cut it, just so I can actually read the instructions still. So now what I'll do is find a good spot on the wood here for this to sit, so that it's not near any of these cracks as much as I can. So just looking at it, actually there's a nice spot just there, which will help me retain maximum amount of the wood that's left. So I think I'll just check that I haven't missed any splits or anything there and glue it down to that. Alright, glue applied, I'll just smear it out and then we'll stick it down. So all glued down, time for a bit of drying assist. Not sure if it'll actually help or not, but okay, so that's glued down now. So obviously with pulling it up later I might just have to rip it off and then just sand it, which is okay. So I'm going to put it through the table saw now just to cut this section out. I won't bore you with that because it's loud, and then we'll get onto the bandsaw. Okay, so here's the finished piece ready to get put onto the bandsaw. So I'll get set up and we'll see if I can cut it out with any accuracy. Alright, here goes nothing. So I actually set this up yesterday and I've set it up properly so that all the so the blade's not moving too much. I'll just tension the blade up because I just forgot that I'd actually detensioned it last night. And so it is set up properly, hopefully. Wish me luck. Let's hope that we don't break a blade or a finger. Alright, there we go. That's not a bad start. First time actually using a bandsaw not in anger as such, but to actually do something that I wanted it to do. Sort of a bit of a mixture of a bandsaw and a whatever the other saw is that's got an even smaller blade. More probably attuned to doing this sort of work. But it seemed to handle the job okay. Now I'll just clean up the mess a bit and start figuring out how to sand this back a bit. So time for a slight side quest. So the instructions say to use a sander or files or just sandpaper in general to remove all the saw marks and get the edges a little bit clearer on for where this is going to go. I do have a belt sander, but it's too big for this sort of fine work. I don't have any files. Well, I've got some, but they're probably rubbish. And sanding will take quite some time, and I've seen videos of people using a drum sander. So I was originally going to make one of those, but then I realised I have this thing. It's a small belt sander attachment for my angle grinder. So then I also have this thing that I bought from the Aldi Isle of Shame many years ago. So I figured I might try and put the grinder in here, which will then mount it, and then I can add the belt sander attachment to the bench, to the angle grinder, and then that should give me something that I can then sort of manually maneuver this around on. So side quest time. Started putting this together the other day for something else, didn't end up going down that path, so it sort of sat there half finished. So now I guess it's a good time as any to resurrect it. Now the instructions for this thing are very vague. As usual, it's just a single piece of paper. So I'm just going to figure it out as I go. Probably just as well, because I think I need to remove and replace the disc that's on this, because I broke it and it looks very jagged and disgusting on the end of it. I can't remember what I was cutting with that, but whatever it was not good. So I'm not going to put the attachment on this yet. I'm going to get this mounted in the holder thing first. So I'll just throw that one in the bin. Or next to it, because that's where it landed. Now I've got to take this thing off, or at least move it, but I think I might just take it off so it's out of the way for now. I'll figure out how this goes in there. Probably these bolts, I think. Slightly small ones. Right, so there's an adjustment here for angle that I just put in. This one here, got a little foot on it. So it goes in there and then just sits up against that. And you can see it changing the angle there. I'm just going to find out where the other holder for that went. So looking at the instructions, this is where that's going in. So that's the foot thing that I've just put in, and it's just going into there. But there doesn't seem to be anything in there, which I don't think I'm comfortable with. So I might just find something to bolt that up with. So I'm just going to use the nut from the other foot and just put a washer on the end of it so that it doesn't disappear into the hole. Alright, so I just put a nut there with that washer behind it, as I said, so it stops it from just being a bit floppy when that whole thing sits there. So now I'm just going to do these bolts up here. Just going to screw these in until they bottom out. So going in for a while. Right. So now I'm going to do these two Allen keys up. Okay, so that's in there nice and solid. So obviously you can see that's the way it normally works, which I might still use it for that. That's what I bought it for. Just locking in obviously your piece of metal into here, and you can change the angle if you need to, and then the disc obviously just cuts straight through there. That probably would have been useful on a couple of jobs I've already done. Never mind. So now we'll get on to putting the sander attachment onto it. So I'm running into a slight problem straight away. By the look of it, this is supposed to go straight from there to there. Looks like the way it's supposed to mount. First thing I've had to do is pull these two, the disc clamp straight off, and then put the attachment adapter on. Okay, so according to the picture on the box here, this is showing it basically with the angle grinder straight, and then this is coming straight out, whereas I'm trying to go off on an angle here, down here. So I'm trying to go off on an angle down here, so I don't think I can. So I need to get this to go past the stop point here and get it so that I can get it to that straight angle. So what I think I'm going to do is the pivot mechanism down here has a stopper piece coming out of it, so I'm just going to undo the clamp off this and basically put it back in so that the stopper's on the other side of where it actually stops, so then it'll actually tilt back that way instead. Might have to go and buy myself another angle grinder. so I can just leave this one mounted in here, the amount of effort I'm going to. Let's take that spring off. So you can see this tongue here, I'm just going to put that on the other side at the stopper spot. So then that's going to sit like that. So I guess I was just looking for a more stable base to run the angle grinder from when I was doing this, but I don't think I've quite achieved that now. Oh, looks like it's got another stopping point. Oh yeah, so this part here is hitting the base here, which is good. So the spring retainer is actually being another stopper for me. So now I should be able to put that bracket on correctly, inverted commas this time. Alright, that's on there okay. The only problem is I'm now looking at the alignment from where everything's sitting there, and it looks like this needs to come out a little bit. Okay, let's throw one of these belts on, see what it looks like. Okay, let's fire it up, see what happens. Okay, that seems to work all right. So I'll get on with doing that and come back to you when I'm finished, so you don't have to sit there and watch me do it. So here's the getting there product. So I've done what I can do. I can't get in here obviously with it, or there, so I'll have to do those by hand, which is okay. So the other thing I've got to do, which I might do now while I've still got the paper on here, is drill these holes. The other thing I've got to do first though, it's on the back side here. The wood was cut with a chainsaw or a mill of some sort, so it's very rough. It's also got a slight variation in the thickness from top to bottom. So I'm just going to put it on my bench sander and actually just flatten that out so that it's least flat. So now I at least have a flat piece of wood on the back here rather than whatever that was. And now of course I've realised there's a couple of little splits there, but I don't think it's going to matter too much. I don't think they go too deep into the wood. If it does, I guess I'll just have to make another one. So now what I've got to do is figure out how to get into these little tiny spots here. I do have a Dremel with a little tub sander on it, so I might try and use that and see how we go. Okay, so the little Dremel sandpaper things that I've got are that big. They were just too big for the holes. I do have some smaller ones, but they were too worn out. So I've ended up doing most of it by hand there. Didn't take too long. That's not too bad. So now I've just got to drill these holes and then finish off some of these edges a little bit better. So they say to just sand off the edge a little bit just to make it a little bit nicer. And then I just got to put a finish on it and then obviously pull this paper off. So we'll drill these holes next. So because I'm here in Australia, of course, I've got to convert all these to metric. Okay, so there's the conversions for anyone who's interested. And there's all my holes drilled. I'm now just going to go through and ream the holes out a little bit just to smooth the edges off a little bit. The only one I didn't do the same was number 5, which is supposed to be 12mm. My 12mm drill bit was bent, so I only put a 10 in. So this time I can probably pull this paper off now. Alright, I'll just give it a quick sand to get rid of the rest of the paper off it. So now I've got both sides actually being wood. So one thing I forgot to mention earlier was when I sanded these particular parts out, the little hooky bits, and in there, because I don't have the Dremel parts, I ended up using a bolt and wrapped the sandpaper around the bolt, and then just used that in the hole. And then for the really tight one, I ended up just using this tool from my lathe, and then just wrapped the sandpaper around that just to make sure that it got in there nicely. So now all I've got to do is just do a light sand on it, just to get it to finish quality, and then put a seal on it. Alrighty, and there's the finished product. So I've still got to put the finish on it. I don't actually have any. So all I've done is just done the light sand that they talk about. They also mentioned about putting they said about use a router, except for these sharp points. I didn't, I just used sandpaper. So I've just got to get some, yeah, as I said, I've just got to get some finish on it. Probably could have done a slightly better job on the sanding, but I'm happy with it as a first try. I'm not going to make these like commercially or anything. This is just actually going into my kitchen so I can use it. So thanks for hanging out in the shop with me today, and hope you enjoy the little side quest with the angle grinder sander. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for me, and see you in the next one. Have a great day.